Okay, so this section we're going to talk about negotiating the offer. So congratulations are in order. If you get an offer, then you can negotiate the offer. And so it comes in different ways, and I just want to talk to you a little bit about the offer and how you can approach the offer. Okay, so let's say you're in the interview, you've answered their questions, and they have kind of sit there and they go, you know what? This is somebody we want on our team. Let's make them an offer. So they're going to ask you that big question. So how much should we pay you? What's your salary? What's your number? What do you want to earn? You can play it a couple of ways. One, you can have a good idea and you can say, you know, I know that I want to make between 100 and 125. And you could just say it. You say, you know what? I'd really like to earn 100 to 125. If you're a little bit below, if you're thinking that, maybe the salary is going to come in at 90, 95, and you sit there and you go, if I ask a little bit more, all they can do is smile at you, or they can say, okay, well, they can think about it. So it's all in how you want to play it. So there's several ways to play it. One of them is if you think the offer is going to come in around 90, 95, and they ask you and they say, well, how much do you want to earn? You could say, how about $125? And they just go, what? You're going to want 125,000? And you go, well, sure, why not? And they go, well, I'm sorry, we're only thinking we're going to offer you. Now, in their mind, they may have been thinking 95. But you ask 125, they're going to feel a little bit shy to say come back to 95. So they might say 98. Let me think. You just made $3,000 in like 30 seconds? So sometimes shoot a little bit above. Or you might use a line, you say, a man feels more like a man when he's making 100K. Why not? You can ask it that way. The other way to do it is to let them kind of set the bar. So that's kind of setting the anchor high. And then they have to kind of pull you back down to reality. And that's okay, because this is negotiation. And your negotiating skills are on display right here. And if they think if you're going to negotiate this way for your own money, maybe you're going to negotiate for a company really well when they're out there negotiating hundreds or thousands or millions of dollars, you're going to ask it in the right way. So this is a little bit of a gamesmanship. Another way you could do it is they say, what's your salary? What do you want to earn? You could just kind of lean forward and you look them directly in the eye and you say, I'll consider your strongest offer. And then you let it sit. And you don't say a word. And you don't say a word. And you just keep looking them in the eye. And it's not a staring contest, but I'm putting the ball in your court and I will consider your strongest offer. You can even emphasize, I'll consider your strongest offer. And they say, okay, and so they're doing the math in their head. They're going, the range is 98 to, or is 89 to 95. And they go, how about 93? And you just go, is that your strongest offer? And if they go, yeah, dude, that's it. Okay, it's not like you're trying to rob them or anything, but you are trying to get a little bit more. And you might say, is that your strongest offer? If they come back and say, okay, 95. You just made $2,000 in 20 seconds. It's so fun because it's negotiation. Now, here's the thing. You got to make sure you're negotiating with the person who has the power to say yes, right? It's the hiring manager. It's the person who's got the purse strings, who knows what the range is in the back of their head. They're walking in, they're going, okay, if I can get this guy in at 95, that's great. I know that the ceiling for this role is 125, so we're going to try and get him in on the bottom end of it. And so they might say, if I can get him in for less than 100, I'm ahead. So they're thinking this way already. So when you do it, you can ask for a little bit more and they're going to bring you back to reality, or they might go, okay. If they did that and you asked for $1.25, congratulations, you just made another $25,000. So you don't want to ask necessarily for the sun, moon, and stars, but you're out of the hourly rate. You're not saying I'm working for $20 an hour. We're talking about engineers and other professionals that are at those higher pay ranges, the gaps can be bigger. I oftentimes say whatever salary you're at, let's say you're making 90K, you want to get at least a 10% bump to move. Some people, and again, it's all in the negotiation. You want to kind of figure out what's the most important thing to you. Now, if you're unemployed, you used to make $90,000. Today, you're making zero. So if they offer you 80, you go, I was making 90. Well, 80, okay, let me think about that. So you want to kind of already have figured out in your head before you walked in the interview, what's the number I don't say no, I say no to? Is it 78? Is it 80? Is it 85? So it depends on your leverage. It also depends on the job. It might be a great job. It might be a job that's only part-time and you don't have to work full-time. It might be a job that's right around the corner and you go, I want the job. I don't want to have to drive through the traffic anymore. It's close to my kid's house. I want to be able to get there and get back. It's remote. It's part-time at home. There's 100 things more than just money. But money does count. And so you want to be upfront about the money and you want to know it. But also you just say, and you can negotiate high, but when they draw you back or they pull you down, even if it's less than what you were, you're already knowing that's a number I'll say yes to. See, if they offer you, if you came in, you were making 90 and okay, 80 is the number because I love this firm. I love what they do. It's near my family or my house. I'm excited about the job. Don't let on too much. I'll take it for peanuts, But if they offer you 80, you go, is that the strongest? And they go, yeah, it really is. We're a tight budget. We've got other people who worked here longer than you are, and again, they bring you in at a certain salary number. They've got everybody else that's been doing that job, perhaps something very similar in that same range. They're not going to want to pay you over them. So you've got to be kind of wise and savvy, but you understand where your number is and where you might fit. But you can always ask for a little bit more and just say, is there any way you could give me a little extra? If they say no, it doesn't hurt you. If they say yes, you just made an extra 5 or 10K or 1 or 2K. So that's important, that negotiating. Okay, then let's step back. That's just the salary. Okay, well, what else is there? Well, you could say, I've got moving expenses. Is there any way you can cover it? I've got to move halfway across the U.S. Movers cost $4 or $5 grand. You can say, can you throw in a relocation allowance? And they might say, yes. Or, no, we don't pay it. Then you start having to figure out. The other one is salaries. Once salary is set, you're kind of in with all the other employees. And so your little bandwidth is somewhere else compared to them. So you could accept a salary and they may say, look, I can't pay you 100K, but I can pay you 90. We'll review it again in 3 months or 6 months. And then you're getting your first raise in 3 months or 6 months or instead of a full year. So you might get a 5% bump in the 6 months and 5% in a year. And so you just say, can I get my first review in 6 months? And if I'm doing great, you're going to give me a bump in pay. And they're like, yeah. Or you could say, I'll get a bump. You can put it in writing. I'm going to get 10% more. The other thing you can talk about is negotiating is a sign-on bonus. You may say, oh, I know you can't, you ask for, you say, you say, can you pay me, what's your strongest salary? And you end up at 100K. And you go, I always wanted to make a little bit more. Is there a way you could give me a signing bonus? I know you asked you for 125. We ended up at 100. Can you throw in an extra 10K for signing bonus? That signing bonus they're saying is, they're saying, yes, absolutely. Or they're going to say no. If they say, will a sign-on bonus get you to say yes? If you say, yeah, it will, then, sometimes I've had one client who just had a check in his pocket. They interviewed and then he walked into the interview and the guy says, I'm kind of excited about the job. And they knew they really wanted him. And they said, well, if you'll say yes today, and he slid a check across the table with 15K on it and said, that's yours if you sign right now. So he knew already he wanted that candidate. He was going after him and he brought a check to the table. It happens. That's negotiating. It happens. You can also negotiate the start date. When are you starting? Well, it's 3 days, 3 weeks, 6 weeks. I encourage you not to get it too far away from when your interview is. You don't want it to be 6 months or 10 years out. You want it to be in the next month or two, because you're creating momentum. They're excited about you. You're excited about them. You want to have that start date in the next 30 to 60 days after your interview. So you want to be able to negotiate it. And you think about it and you go, if I quit this job, I'm going to have a couple of weeks of vacation, maybe 3 weeks of vacation. I'm going to relax, get ready, and then I'm going to show up ready to go on this particular day. So you want to think about that. And then the last thing, when it comes to negotiating, get it all in writing. Just get it all in writing. Because you want to know your vacation time. You want to know, send me a copy of the benefits. Yeah, the benefits are normal. No, benefits are not normal. At your company, you may have the company's paying most of your family deductible and benefits. Another company says, no, that's on you. And that can be $10,000 to $15,000 to $20,000. So the benefits and the insurance is a big deal. So I want you to pay attention to that and say, I'd like to have the benefits package as well. If you know that you've already had 2 or 3 interviews, they like you, say, can you send me the benefits package beforehand? You can get it, you can kind of study it and check the numbers, make sure it's equal. So those are the big things that oh, what? Vacation? You mean you want to take a vacation time? Absolutely. Okay, so here's the deal when it comes to vacation. Most companies, the base is 2 weeks. Here in the States, the base is 2 weeks of vacation. If you work 50 weeks a year, they're going to give you 2 weeks. That's usually the base. And they may say, well, our company policy says we only give 2 weeks of vacation when the first 5 years. You can just, the only thing that employees typically, when they're at the cooler talk, is the salary. It's the number. The vacation is flexible. It just is. It's just flexibility. So you could just say, if they say, well, we only give out 2 weeks, say, I'm already at 3 weeks, if that's the truth. Or you just say, I've always wanted 3 weeks. I need 3 weeks. I really want 3 weeks. And they'll go, what? Now listen, if they say yes, you just gave yourself another raise. You're getting paid not to work. It sounds like a raise to me. And it's about what? 1 extra week's another 5 or 7% on your salary, because you don't have to go to work. You can relax. That gives you an opportunity to spend time with your wife's parents or your husband's parents, whatever. The in-laws, you get to go on vacation for a week, and then you have a few days extra for sick leave or whatever. So that extra week, ask for it. They can always say no, and they're not going to get mad. You could even ask for 4 weeks of vacation. If it's a professional role, they might just say, oh yeah, that's kind of common. Some companies say, look, we don't even measure PTO or paid time off. You take as much as you want. We're going to give you the tasks that are expected from you. As long as you keep your clients happy and you do your work, we don't care. Take vacation whenever you want. So vacation time is important as well. And because we all want to be able to relax and get away from the day-to-day work world there. So that's the offer. Those are the different main areas of negotiating the offer. And you kind of want to have a good idea in your head of what you're looking at before you go in. Again, it's preparation and doing your research to know what the salary probably is going to come in at. And then you can say, you know what, how much chutzpah do I have? Ask for a little bit more, because they can always say no and reel you back down a little bit. But you can't say, well, what's the offer? And they go, well, we're going to pay you $95. And you're like, oh, I was thinking $135. So again, you want to be sharp in how you negotiate, and that's how you go about acing that negotiation and the offer step. And the one last thing, make sure you get your offer in writing. Say, please give it in writing, because for heaven's sake, don't turn in your resignation till you have an offer in writing. You don't want to tell your old company, I'm leaving, and then all of a sudden you get an offer and something happened. Okay, one last little thing. When you get the offer, again, oftentimes it's contingent upon a drug test and a background check. depending on where you are in the U.S. and what it is, they're going to do those checks. If you know you're crystal clean, there's no issues on drugs or a background check, you might go ahead and turn in your resignation. I just say things happen that you're not even sure you're aware of. So I encourage people, go ahead and hold on to that offer. Submit your information. Once you pass the drug test and the background check and you're clean, you're good to go, and they say, yeah, we're good, you come on in on the start date, that's when you can turn in your resignation at your company. Most people encourage you to leave 2 weeks. I've seen people leave a little bit earlier than that. Sometimes they say, no, I want to be, it could last longer. Again, that shorter that time is from when you accept the offer to your start date is better. Usually, 2 to 3 weeks, maybe a month. So that's it. Once you've got that interview, some people end up getting 2 or 3 offers to compare right together. If that's your case, my goodness, congratulations. But regardless of whether it's 1 or 3 offers on the table, you want to make sure that you negotiate well and that you have it in writing before you submit your resignation to your current company. So that's it. That's how you ace the offer. That's how you know that you set yourself up for a good spot with the company you're getting ready to work with, because you've shown your negotiating skills, and that's how you ace the offer.